Do I really need a workshop, or could it have also been an email?
Hello and welcome to this new episode of Digitalog by DPM. You may wonder why Robert is sitting on our guest couch today and what I am doing here. To make it short, Robert is too good of a guest for being the host of this episode, as he and Bene, they have a lot of expertise on the topic that we're going to talk about today, which is why I'm trying to fit in his footsteps and try to host this session.
You will do, I'm sure.
We'll see, otherwise you need to jump in and help me a little bit. I'm Carmen, I'm usually standing behind the camera as I'm working in marketing for DPM. And I actually prefer standing behind the camera. We'll see. So we are talking about workshops today on a Friday afternoon. And I hope you don't feel a little disappointed, because workshops, it's something that most of us have been to like 1,000 times in their professional life, and some of them are better and others are so.
Less better.
Less better. So maybe that's exactly the reason why we picked the topic, to make clear like when and why people should conduct workshops and what makes a good workshop. And you guys are from our service design and concept team.
Right.
And maybe you want to introduce yourself, which is a little weird in your case, Robert, and maybe give a little bit of a context why workshops are a big thing in your department.
Yeah, sure. So, you probably know me already, but not from my background why I'm sitting on the guest couch today. So I'm, as you said, I'm in the service design and concept department, working as a UX designer, so responsible for UX concepts, but also working in the service design field, which is more into the direction of discovery processes and discovery methodology, and also like facilitating and designing workshops. So this is one of the main fields that we are handling at DPM. And as you already said, like I personally have the feeling that workshops are way more of a topic since we are working remotely more and more. And therefore, I think it's still an important topic, what makes a good workshop compared to what are the things that you probably need to avoid when you want to have a good workshop. So I think it's, even though it's an old topic, in these remote days, it's getting more and more important to like have something in your mind when conducting a workshop. Do I really need a workshop, or could it have also been an email or another format? So I think that's the reason why we want to talk about it today. So that's from my side, and
Bene, would you agree that remote workshops are meant to stay? And maybe you can also let us know what your experience and background with conducting workshops is.
Yes, absolutely. I'm happy to do so. I would say remote workshops, they will stay in the future because they are very cost efficient. Bringing people together from different cities or countries even is very time intense, very expensive as well. So I think that's a big advantage of remote workshops, being more efficient resource-wise. Also considering sustainability as a factor, I think it's also better for the environment, having not so many people traveling. So I've seen the last 2 to 3 years a lot of workshops. I've been a new joiner to the service design and concept team, and previously in the job I did a lot of workshops and facilitated a lot of workshops remotely, plus physically, and I hope to leverage that knowledge now in this field of service design, to bring product concepts to life. So really looking forward to it. And that's shortly from my side.
Maybe I can jump on that, because I think it's not only resource-wise efficient or more efficient to have workshops remote, but from the perspective of conducting and facilitating and also analyzing and like document workshops, I think that's way easier when you all have those insights and inputs from the participants already digitized and like documented in a way that I don't have to stand in front of the wall and have to type everything single sticky note from the wall and document it somewhere because it's already there. So I think also from those like tooling perspectives, remote workshops are still in a way like competitive in terms of effectiveness.
Yeah. I think it's the classic when you have all the post-its on the wall and then you take a picture of it and it's on your iPhone and you never look at it again. It's just
in the best case you upload it somewhere to the cloud, but yeah.
Absolutely.
All
rarely
right.
happens.
But let's start this whole conversation Simon Sinek style. Always start with the why. So why are we talking about workshops in the first place, and why do hold people workshops, and in which context do we do that at DPM? Many questions at once.
Do you want to start? Okay. But I think I touched already some of the topics why I think it's important to talk about it, because I mean the schedule every week is somewhat limited, right? We just have some hours each day where we can work. If you then are splattered the whole week with too many meetings, it's hard to get things done, right? And therefore, my personal feeling is, since it is way easier to set up a workshop in remote times because you don't have to arrange all the participants, get them to the same location, just from that perspective, it's way easier to conduct workshops nowadays. And therefore, I at least have the feeling, and that's why I think the episode name of but first let's have a workshop is a trend that I at least would like to have a look on it. If for every single topic that we're currently working on, a workshop is really the best format to choose, or if there are other ways to get the same things done more efficiently. Because for some reasons I do have the feeling that we tend to have more workshops than we actually need.
Okay.
And therefore, I think it's valuable to talk about what's a workshop actually for. So to raise the question to myself, the goal that I'm aiming for, can I achieve it with the workshop or not? And if the answer is yes, that I need a workshop, what are the criteria that I need to fulfill in order to have an efficient and a good workshop? So from like my perspective, these are the main things why we need to talk about it.
Bene, from your point of view, what would you say why people conduct workshops, or what's the aim of a workshop?
Yeah, in my opinion, the main thing is to get things done in a collaborative and efficient way, I would say. Bring people together. It's a different style of meeting, right? So it's not a meeting to discuss things only, but to get it done together. So I mean, the
workshop
workshop, I believe, is has a meaning in a sense, and sometimes workshops are in the wrong context. And it's very important to do it in the right way. It's not a vehicle that everyone can use at every time, and it does not fit in every occasion, I would say. So why should one do a workshop? To really align people, to make decisions together, to brainstorm, to ideate, to create things together. So I think that's the most important factors in a nutshell. And not only like a one-way communication or just a discussion or all the other things that you could do, writing an email or anything else, right? So the vehicle is very important. It's not a solution, a one-size-fits-all solution, a workshop. And it needs to be very well prepared to have a good workshop, because there is so much time that goes into such a workshop in preparation. And it's just 3 hours, right? So it's like a movie.
But is it said that it needs to be 3 hours, or is that
no? This was just in my mind,
okay,
right?
yeah.
If you have a 3 hours workshop, imagine you go into a cinema, you watch a movie for 3 hours, you do not see all the work that they've spent like crafting that movie, and it's the same with the workshop. It's a lot of time that goes into that, so one should figure it out in the very first moment if it does make sense to have a workshop, because in the end, it can be even more time inefficient and resource inefficient considered to other styles like a meeting or just a call or an email or I don't know, a presentation. So this is very important. Otherwise, you really lose more than you gain having a workshop.
So if you ever had the workshop where you haven't contributed at all because there was just a few people transporting knowledge from A to B, then it probably shouldn't have been a workshop.
Then it's a status update or...
Yeah, I mean, transporting knowledge can be done in different ways. It can be crafting the PowerPoint slides or whatever, and then just send them over with some digest of what needs to be transported in a nutshell. It can be done in like a meeting format for those people that are relevant. Which is one of the most success criteria that you have to keep in mind when conducting a workshop. Who is relevant for that workshop? It's not, okay, let's put in all stakeholders there because then I've updated them and then I'm going in peace and do my own stuff again.
And I mean, workshops is like a very broad term. There are workshops for training, for, I don't know, rebranding and whatsoever. What would be a typical context where DPM would do a workshop? Because I mean, our clients, they mainly call us if they want to create or optimize a digital product. So in what context would a workshop make sense there?
So from my perspective, I actually wouldn't do a workshop for a client just for workshop reasons. So we kind of embed a workshop into a larger project context. That means whenever we see the necessity of we need to collaborate with our client in a way to get things done or to move forward in the project, in the overall project context, then for us it totally makes sense to have a workshop because we are not I also don't want to be the one that just takes some information, then I'm going back in my office, working for 2 months, going back, and then I'm just pushing the results there. So that's why I think workshops are a crucial part of our project context to move things forward in a collaborative way with our clients together. So, and for all the listeners out there that are not in these service and client context, I think it's still the same thing when you think in your own organization, cross departments or cross teams. Whenever you need another team to get things done and to move forward, it's a good way to have a workshop. So it doesn't have only to be in this service-client relationship. So.
All right, so we talked about meetings and we talked about workshops. And in both cases, you gather busy individuals and they spend time in your given setup. And how do you now decide if it's worth to have a workshop or if it's just a meeting? Or, what are the factors that come into that decision?
My opinion is that a workshop, or what we usually do, it's very collaborative. That's the difference for me. We gather together with individuals, yes, from different disciplines, and we gather them together with a clear outcome. Yeah, we guide them through a process, and I think that's the difference for me. We guide them through a process that we design before. We gather them together. We are not just discussing things, but we are really working out. Yeah, so I think that's the difference. Workshop, having work in mind, having also fun in mind, co-creating things together based on an understanding that we either gain in the beginning of a session or before, building on that, creating, ideating, brainstorming, having creative exercises, right? So that's for me a workshop to really work together on things that make a difference. And there can be potential solutions, that can be ideas, that can be different aspects one might think of in the business context. But in the product context, what would you think are the the key? What makes a workshop for us different?
I think like not sure if I told it in that way already, but thinking of the workshop not as an isolated thing, but having it in a context of a project, which means you already touched like thinking of a workshop as a vehicle to get things done in a certain context. And therefore, it's not like having a workshop and now let's get back to work, but using the workshop as a format to actually get things done that are necessary in order to move the whole project forward. And therefore, like the workshop is from what the outcome of of this working session is different than a meeting where you also have like defined outcomes of a meeting, but these are different.
Yeah, I see what you mean. And it's maybe also about involving people in this idea creation, because then they will support the solution or the next steps that come out of the workshop when they were part of it and helped to create it and played an active role in it. But okay, when I now know, okay, these criteria, the criteria for having a workshop is given, and then I'm deciding, okay, let's do a workshop. How can I ensure then that it's going to be an effective and productive and creative session that has an outcome that I can use for, I don't know, for example, further product development?
Mm-hmm. That's a very good question. I would say the context is very important, like to see the workshop being part of a context. It's like you need to know the client situation, you need to know their environment, their customers. You need to get an understanding of that as a facilitator running that workshop. You need to be familiar with the methods that could be part of that workshop. You need to invite the right people to the workshop. You need to define the purpose. So why are you gathering together these people on a certain day? You need to think of what are the objectives, what are the outcomes that one is trying to achieve, and all these aspects need to be defined before. So preparation is really key. Having a good workshop, not only preparation, also on the day, if you have a good facilitator, this is also something that can make a huge difference. And also afterwards, having an action-oriented approach during the workshop as well as afterwards. Usually when we do workshops, it's embedded into a bigger discovery project or any other type of project. So it's a vehicle, it's part of it. And this needs to be in the minds of the people. It's not that you go in and just like throw in your knowledge or your ideas and then you leave and it's done. I believe this is the huge difference.
And Robert, would you say that, I mean, when Bene talks about having a facilitator, it sounds like that this is very important for a successful workshop. Maybe would you agree on that a facilitator is absolutely necessary? And maybe you can also explain what a facilitator is for people who are not that deep into that phrase.
Maybe starting with what a facilitator is. So basically, the facilitator in a workshop facilitates the workshop. So this person is responsible for guiding the participants through the whole workshop design that was beforehand defined. So that means making sure that like the time schedule that you planned more or less still holds true when you actually do the workshop. So keeping track on the time and like stop discussions whenever they are not into the direction of the defined goals of the workshop. So not lose track in discussions that are not worth to discuss at that specific moment. So guide them more in these, let's say facilitation part, guide them through the workshop. But also it totally makes sense to have a facilitator who is familiar with the chosen methodology in the workshop. So for example, when we conduct a customer journey workshop, it makes sense that the facilitator at least knows how to guide through this specific methodology, because you can't set as a prerequisite that every and each participant in the workshop knows this methodology that was chosen before. So you should be able to explain what to do, how to do it, and help out if people struggle with that. And then the third part, where I think it's not necessary, but it's definitely beneficial to have a facilitator who has some certain knowledge in that field. Like when we talk about like discovering digital products, I mean, it's worth that you know digital products, their strategies, what different products are out there, and like different business models behind that, and stuff like that, to question or like ask the right questions in a context that enables the participant to widen their perspective and think about things they probably wouldn't thought of without a facilitator. So I mean, therefore I totally agree that a facilitator can make a huge difference, but I wouldn't agree that always one is necessary, like an external facilitator. I think the facilitation role is a crucial part of a workshop, and it should always be there, but it doesn't always have to be an external facilitator. If you have a very experienced team who's aware of the methodology, who's like has a very good team dynamic and is able to perform a workshop in an efficient way without one person like pushing them to do it. But I think the facilitation role itself should always be considered when having a workshop, even though if it's on the own team's side, that some should jump into the role of a facilitator. Yeah. So yes, I think the facilitator is a crucial part of a workshop, and no, it doesn't also necessarily has to be an external one.
Okay. So my next question kind of leads me to the DPM way of doing things, because when I understand it right, what makes us different from other facilitators is that our clients, they contact us for building a product or optimizing a digital product with them. So not just for workshop facilitation. So our facilitators who are part of the workshop, they know about the whole product building process. They don't just come in to facilitate the workshop. And I guess this has certain advantages and maybe also disadvantages, because they're not 100% neutral, right? So how would you say that differs from just having someone in who is involved in the whole project compared to having just someone neutral to facilitate a workshop?
Well, it depends.
Classic.
Like neutral or objective in terms of I'm not part of the team which is actually doing the workshop, already helps to do the facilitation work in an objective way, because you can stop discussions that are ongoing in like minimum invasive way, without like pushing on emotions, because people know me already and they have some context why I probably stopped that discussion. So from that perspective, we are objective as externals. But of course, and that plays into the third point I just mentioned, that having, DPM or us in the workshop who have some certain knowledge in the digital industry, so to speak, with expertise from different companies, from different industries, who can widen the horizon of the participants. Of course, it's not that objective, but in a beneficial way, I would say.
Because you can answer, or you can ask better questions because you know more about the context.
Not necessarily better, but the right questions, or at least other questions that the people wouldn't have thought of without us.
Okay. And Bene, what would be like a typical workshop that is conducted by DPM as part of the whole product building or product development process?
Yeah, one service delivery that we have is a customer journey workshop that we usually do, and we've done a lot in the last few months. Customer journey workshop is usually a 2-day workshop with a client, and what we do there is we dive into the customer journey, and we try to bring them in the mindset of where and how do customers of our client go through how do they interact with the firm, with their products, with their services, from step A to step Z. It's like, what is the full journey of a customer, of our clients? And we try to bring in people from different departments in that workshop so that everybody gets an understanding of the journey. So it's not only the customer support who tend to have the most contacts, it's the sales team and it's the marketing team, and many others come together in these 2-day workshops, and we try to craft a customer journey together, the different phases, and then we dive into the customers itself and try to understand in interviews that we conduct before what are their pains and what are their needs, and this is something we build on, then in workshops present that to the client saying, look, this is what we figured out in the interviews, these are the pains and needs of your customers, and this is how, and these pains and needs belong to the respective phase of the customer journey, and based on that we then start figuring out what could be potential solutions in the future. So how might we solve X, Y, Z? This is usually a classical workshop that we offer, and a workshop is here the best vehicle to get a kickstart into that world of customers' pains and needs, etc. So it's very intensive in these 2 days. It's also a very good kickstart. It's a start of a bigger process, of a transformation, I would even say.
So would you hand over to the client a paper with, okay, these are the outcomes, these are our recommendations, and then you're like, bye-bye, have fun with it? Or how does that work, Robert?
I mean, how you phrase it in the question already, obviously it's not that way. Basically, thinking again of the analogy for like the workshop as crafting a movie. So starting with the preparation, then making sure that the movie is great, having the director as a facilitator for that reason. But also, and I'm a huge Marvel fan, so I do really like this universe of all those movies, and what I really like about them is that you can't just watch one movie, or of course you can watch, but it's more fun when you watch it in the overall context of the whole universe.
Depending on how much you like Marvel movies.
Yeah, of course. Not questioning that people do not like it, but that's the reason why I like it, and I think it is comparable to the workshop, because when we look at the workshop as one movie, ideally that's not the only one, but if you like it and if it's successful, then you want to think about what step 3, step 4, and so on, and thinking already of how the first movie can transfer to the next steps, and already thinking of the next steps, because then you can already teaser and use that movie to build the prerequisites for all the stories to come. And therefore, like the customer journey workshop, where we more or less try to enable clients to think from a customer perspective and try to come up with customer-centric ideas and solutions that could kick off a certain project, like step 2, step 3, step 4, where we then already try to identify how does the outcome of the customer journey workshop transform into recommendations where to focus on the next steps, and how to tackle this topic then, and already propose an approach how to use that outcome from that workshop to move forward and to get the vehicle from this street maybe to another, or how to move forward with what we just learned.
Okay, so I'm doing a classic Robert now, which is traditionally at the end of each episode asking you for the key takeaways for all the busy listeners and watchers out there who want a quick summary of the most important topics we touched today.
Of course, following your agenda, that means one of the most important things you have to answer yourself in the first step is, do I really need a workshop? So thinking of a workshop as a tool means not always it's the appropriate tool for the things I want to achieve in that certain moment. That means, repeating myself, a workshop is a collaborative way to craft ideas and solutions and other topics together, where it's just too complex to have a meeting and discuss about that. So you meet some methodology to make this complexity digestible and to prepare it in a way that the participants are able to focus on the most important things that need to be done in that workshop in order to achieve the aligned workshop goals, which help me then to move the whole project in that context further. So I think that these are the two most critical parts at the beginning, and then I think you probably can jump in and
then I don't know anymore. You can jump in.
And then the expertise from Bene jumps in, where you have to define what actually makes a good workshop.
All right, Bene, what makes a good workshop?
What makes a good workshop? Yeah, I try to summarize it very quick. What makes a good workshop? I mean, you need to really start with a purpose. Like, what's the reason why are we gathering together, busy individuals? And then you need to define the objectives. Like, what are you aiming for in a given time period? What do you want to walk away with? What's the outcome? What might be next steps coming afterwards? And you need to define that prior to the workshop. And within the workshop, you need to also have the right people in the room. You need to have the right mindset, the right context, the right knowledge. And I think combining all that, you then have a very good workshop. So the most important fact is as well the methodologies that you use and the exercises that you use. They need to match with the objectives that you do set before. And you need to match it together in order to reach the outcomes that you've defined. So if you follow up on that, define your objectives, and then thinking about the right methodologies, matching it, you can really have a good workshop. And this would be my advice, to always start with these questions. Ask why maybe 5 times. And if you really then still can answer that properly, then you can have a workshop that is not a time waster, I would say.
And plan with a facilitator, right? So which can make a huge difference. And as we said earlier, I think it's you have a higher chance of a good outcome of a workshop when you have a certain person in the room whose job it is to keep this goal in mind and try to guide the people in the room so that we are actually following what we have said before.
Sounds reasonable. Thank you very much for sharing. I learned a lot about workshops today. I hope you as well. And I really hope that I did an okayish job in replacing Robert in this chair here.
Awesome, you did an awesome job.
Thank you, that's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, definitely.
And if you guys have...
Maybe I can just stay here and you're doing it.
And I'm staying here. Let's see. Depends on the topic. I was quite happy that I haven't had to do the unopinionated versus opinionated development one.
That was a pretty interesting one.
It was an interesting episode, but...
We can do it in the YouTube way. You can now click here.
Yeah.
And then
All right, so if you have any questions left on workshops, or you need a facilitator, or you want to conduct a customer journey workshop, get in touch. We're always happy to help. And we're also happy for your feedback on this episode. That being said, I wish you a pleasant weekend, end of the day, rest of the day, whatever work day or weekend or time. Okay, now I'm messing it up. Anyways, bye-bye.
Thank you, bye-bye.